Hello everyone, I'm Ishani, design team member at CrafTangles. I've been associated with CrafTangles for almost 2 years now, and sadly this would be my last tutorial for them. I'm sad to leave the team, but this year has been really hard on all of us. But I wanted my last tutorial to be a special one, so I've got some ideas with lots of techniques you can use for wedding cards or anniversary cards using CrafTangles supplies. For my first card, I'm using the stamp set Hello Lovely with beautiful floral images and have taken rose pink cardstock by CrafTangles on which I'm going to heat emboss my flowers. But before, I will create some masks with CrafTangles masking paper, for which I stamp my 2 flowers with black ink. And then cut them out just at their black edge. Now that my masks are ready, I take rose pink cardstock panel and use anti-static powder tool to remove all the static. I stamp my first flower on top of the card with Versamark ink and use gold embossing powder on the stamped image. I use a brush to take off the extra and heat emboss the flowers. For stamping the next flowers, I use a mask to cover my flower and then go ahead and stamp with the same Versamark ink and gold heat emboss them as well, and continue till I have my whole left and bottom side of the panel full of flowers. Initially I had planned to keep my flowers just like they were, but then I thought I could add some more interest by coloring these flowers lightly with my pencil colors. I'm using polychromos in pinks and purples for the coloring. But because I'm not great at it, I'll just rush through it and show you how it looked at the end. And here is how it looks after all the flowers were colored. It is not a detailed coloring, but I'm happy with how it was looking. Now I take scissors and cut around my floral cluster. Now with my floral cluster ready, I take a side folding note card in Old Lace color by CrafTangles. I love this color cardstock and is one of my most used cardstock. To add some more interest, I take Versamark ink and go around the 3 sides of my cardstock edges and use gold embossing powder at the edge and heat emboss it. For the sentiment, I am using a lovely sentiment from the stamp set called Indian Wedding, and stamp it and heat emboss it again with gold embossing powder. To finish off the card, I adhere the floral panel with 3D foam tape on the left side of my side folding note card. And here is an elegant and beautiful card with floral stamps. And pink lotus being symbolic of purity and devotion, it is perfect for an anniversary card or giving it to a newlywed. I hope you like this card and will try this technique with your floral stamps. For the next card, I'm using this intricately illustrated stamp called Indian Wedding with a beautiful couple doing their fere, which is 7 rounds around the sacred fire. I've taken rich red cardstock and I'm using geometric flowers stencil for my background. I adhere the stencil to the red cardstock and with red ink, which is Raspberry Jam by Hero Arts, a darker ink than my cardstock. I ink around the cardstock at the edges, leaving the inner part without this red dark color. The stencil is a little small for the card base, so I move it up and then go at the bottom with the same color. Here's how it looks, and now I'll come to the stamping. I've left the inner part uninked because I wanted my couple to be in the center. I used anti-static powder on my card and position the stamp. I take Versamark ink and stamp it and use gold embossing powder for my couple and heat emboss it. And there are changes in plan. Though I initially thought I would do a red panel for the background of my card, now I want to add more color. So I take a frame die and die cut the couple. And for the background now, I'm taking pumpkin orange top folding note card. I position my geometric flower stencil and stencil abandoned coral distress oxide ink on the orange cardstock. So it creates a border for our die cut red panel. I'm basically using a darker color than my cardstock. I use 3D foam tape to adhere the red panel on the orange note card, making sure that the little geometric flowers continue in the same pattern on both the cardstocks. To add some embellishment, I take this red and gold dory or a cord, and with fabric glue, I adhere it on top of my cardstock and tucking the ends inside and sticking them too. I'm really happy with the way this card turned out. It reminds me of the wedding invitations we get for Hindu weddings, with red, orange and yellows as preferred colors and with gold accents. I hope you like this simple card as well and would try something similar. Let's go on to the last card and show how I do it. For this card, I'll be doing light watercoloring, so I take Canson Monthol watercolor paper and I've taken Mr. and Mrs. stamp set by CrafTangles, again an illustration of a scene from a Hindu wedding. I stamped this lovely image with waterproof ink, and because the surface of the watercolor paper is little textured, I stamp it twice so that I get a crisp image. For coloring, I'm using my zigs and some other watercolors that I don't have shades of in my zigs for coloring the image. I'll not bore you with the coloring, so I'll speed up the whole coloring process. After I've finished coloring, I cut out the frame. For my card base, I've taken dual texture white cardstock and I'm going to do some ink blending with Distress Oxide inks in picked raspberry and spiced marmalade, basically in pink and in orange. If you've gone through my previous videos, you know that I really recommend dual texture cardstock, the matte side, for doing smooth blending. And CrafTangles blending brushes make it much easier. But I do miss building my biceps because these brushes and this paper have made it so effortless. And now I'll do some tone-on-tone stenciling for creating an interesting background. After I've gone through my panel with the ink blending, I take CrafTangles mandala stencil and place half of it on my pink side and go over it a little harder with the same ink to get a tone-on-tone background. And be careful if you're using Distress Oxides, as they may not dry quickly. And you can speed it up by trying it with the heat gun. I do the same with the bottom part and do the same with spiced marmalade. And you see, I have some fingerprints already on my panel because I had not dried my panel. So I go over it with my ink and blending brush again, and off camera I dry it off with the heat tool. To assemble the card, I take a black marker and go around the edges of the stamped image and use 3D foam tape behind it and mount it over my tone-on-tone stenciled background. I have not chosen to put a sentiment, which you can surely put inside whenever you're presenting the card. And did you see how easy it is to assemble this card? Even though the stamped image looked very intricate, loose watercoloring, colorful background made it into a gorgeous card. So next time you can use a similar stamp and make a card for somebody who's getting married or for an anniversary and remind them of their wedding ceremony. I hope you enjoyed these 3 cards that I shared. You can get the full supply list on the blog post linked in the description box below. And also do not forget to follow all the social media handles so that you don't miss any of the creative and beautiful ideas for using your craft supplies. Thank you very much for stopping by and for your lovely words of encouragement. They mean a lot. Time to say bye-bye. Keep crafting and stay safe.